All right, everybody, I have Jennifer Tran here, a design training specialist from Tangram Interiors, who's going to do our CET challenge, but we're going to do it slightly different today because she's training. We're actually going to dive into some really interesting things related to calculations and specifications. So Jennifer is going to show us her processes for categories and visibility settings, and also some tips for troubleshooting some issues you might run into. So, hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Awesome. So we're glad to have you here today, and I'm actually going to kind of pass the mic on to you and just let you talk us through what you're doing within CET and describing a little bit of the why it matters, and what would be the purpose of the things that you're working on that would help other people using these tools as well.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. This project was a real challenge for me and pushed me to do some of the things that I haven't played around with before and dive into the categories and custom categories a little bit more than before. And I always tell people, like, when you're really stuck in a hard project, like, this is the good one that's going to push you forward in some way. You know, that, like, we like the easy projects and we like the stuff that's a little more typical, but it's these challenging projects that really help you learn and grow as a designer. And within CET. So in this instance, I had several challenges, one of which was, you can see there's a lot of color blocks on here. So there were breaking up, ordering the furniture up into a lot of different phases because they were approving things as they went through the process and wanted to get stuff ordered right away for the stuff they had approved while they were still working through the details of the stuff they hadn't approved and agreed on yet. So I had to break out.
The they you're referring to is the client or the customer?
The client, yes. Yeah, which was a whole group of decision makers. So It was a little bit of a process.
More cooks in the kitchen then.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, let me break stuff up in and do the color coding into different phases. And so I had all my different phase 2 and 3 marked with color blocks in here. And I knew that we were going to be printing stuff in several different pages. And I wanted to make sure that it was something in my model space here and not something that I had to do on every single page. So I kept that in here. And then we went and did the field verification, and they put the electrical not where we asked them to put it, basically. So a lot of miscommunication with electrical situation. Okay. And so I had my field dimensions, and then I had my dimensions of the actual electrical location versus the location that I had specified. And I went into work on this and do a live design for these other areas. And I was like, you know what, this drawing just looks so messy. There's so much in here. I'm having trouble reading all my notes and wanting to look at things at different times. And then I'm looking at all the phase notes and everything is just getting chaotic. And so I knew that the custom categories were something that existed and were working a lot better now, had been really dialed in and had a lot of good features. So I said, well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to really teach myself what these are and how to use them. So I made some custom categories for all the different things that were going on, the original electrical, electrical changes, electrical to move, actual electrical, all these crazy electrical things that were going on, and then my field dimensions as well. And I wanted some of them in color. And then once I created and put these things on those certain categories, then I was able to come in with the filter tool that exists now in the 2D space. And I could say, okay, well, I'm doing a live design. I don't want to see all this craziness in here. So I'm going to just click on each one of these and turn these things off. And then I could even turn off like the phases and things like that if I wanted to as well. But I was like, okay, I just want to get those out of the way for now. And then when I come over into my paper space too, I could do the same thing. Like I can print exactly what I want to print by doing the same, either a filter or coming in here into these categories and turning each one of these things on and off as I wanted to print. So it gave me just a lot more control. It does take a little bit of time to set up, but it was worth it in the end because I could set up multiple different pages and just turn stuff on and off as I needed. It was really helpful.
Great. And that helped your process in terms of being able to see all of the different pieces and parts in there, but also then for your clients to be able to navigate what was happening and what was changing, and all of that easily without being confused at what they were looking at.
Yes, I've been printing it for the contractors and everybody too, to see exactly what plans they wanted in the way that they wanted to see them, and print multiple pages or on the same page depending on what they were asking for.
Excellent.
So then, as you can see, I've got these red monitor arm situation happening. The second part of this is I help the team go through and find errors and glitches and things in their drawings right now. And so we have multiple ways to find all of these things. When the symbol is red, it's a really clear indication. It's bright and glaring for us. That's not always the case. So I'll just go through my typical steps on finding these invalid parts and pieces.
Great.
Sometimes it's really clear when we're looking at the drawings or specs. Other times we're not finding this out until we get the direct link errors, that something's not transferring over, something's blocking or invalid. And so occasionally we have to kind of start at the end and work our way back. In this instance, this is showing red, so it's pretty clear when I click on it, it shows that it's invalid. The other thing in the query box, when it shows 0, so sometimes even the red isn't existing. We're looking at the information for the parts and seeing if the specs are coming in, and if they're all described too. So in some instances, we're getting certain parts of the spec, like the fabric being discontinued. And you'll have to look for these really subtle differences, but there'll be a 0 or there'll be just no text in one of the fields. That's something I'll look for. And then, of course, the other glaring details going into the calculation view and seeing something that's red here. And we have to go in and change this out or replace it. And in this instance, I'll kind of take this one out here and we can go back to the drawing. They're frozen too. And so if I had frozen this at some point, and so I was looking at my drawing and like, I don't know what's invalid in here, it's still going to show up in my calculation view. And then if I'm not sure where that is, I can right click and say locate on the drawing, and then it'll show me it's somewhere in here. And then I can double click in here. I also love that we have the unfreeze all tool, because that'll bring back something. If I can't see where the frozen gray box is basically, then I can use that unfreeze all. And then I can look in the calculation view and just in that component block, which I love component blocks. They're my favorite thing too. Then I can delete that piece. And we'll look at like project validate too. We'll give us some clues. But I like to tell people just go through one part at a time, one section at a time, to try and find discontinued special quotes or old product called pieces, things like that, to figure out what's not linking over, giving them an error. And then last resort, I tell people just break it up into parts. So I would do like a half a plan and I'd send that piece and then I'd send the other half and then just keep narrowing it down an area until I find the area where the glitch is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like a longer option. So hopefully you can figure it out in the other.
Exactly. That's the last resort piece.
Right. Yeah. Okay, we have about 30 seconds or so more. Do you have any just kind of quick troubleshooting tips you want to show us? Kind of a go-to one, maybe if you want to jump into one of those ones we talked about.
Yeah, so those are pretty much my favorite in terms of like looking for spec errors. The other thing I'll do though is I'll try to test things out in a bunch of different ways. And so I'll take something, if there's like a piece of furniture specifically that we think is not working, I always try to test it out myself if a designer is seeing something. And so it seems like it would be really time consuming to do, but maybe this is just because I'm used to, doing it more frequently now, but just putting some finishes on things and going in and testing the pieces and then closing the drawing and going back into it after a clean start is sometimes all you need to do like a good refresh.
Sure.
And if I can send in a bug report with a little bit more information, I just get so much further in the end.
Yep.
Because when we send a vague report in, the first question is always like, well, did you try to clean start? And did you do this? Did you do that? So I try to send in my bug reports with just a little bit more information where I can say like, hey, I applied all this. I did everything I could do. I closed the drawing. I opened it again and I'm still seeing the same result. That's my tip for reporting bugs and things.
That's a great tip. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other final thoughts for us in your CET challenge?
No, I think I covered all the good stuff.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time, Jennifer. And until next time, have a good one.
Thank you very much.